Last year, the best movie about race, in my opinion, was an animated one revolving around a bunny. And this year, it may just be a horror film directed by a comedian. So in this video, I want to take Get Out and break it down not only as a horror film, but as the satire about race that it is. So know that if you haven't seen the movie, definitely go check it out, watch it with an audience, because the movie is insane. Now, the main reason that I love doing these videos is because, one, there's always those little things that go unnoticed the director put into the movie, and I also love making a spoiler video where I can explain my thoughts. But two, sometimes these movies are straightforward, but you get some crazy theories that are out there. For example, there are some people who believe that this movie is just this racist propaganda made by a black guy who's just completely angry.
No.
He's actually mixed and is married to a white woman, so relax. Another thing that I've heard is that it's a comedy first and then a horror.
No.
Peele himself has said that it's a horror first and that whenever you laugh, it's you laughing at what makes you personally uncomfortable. There's this theory that it's connected to Split.
No.
That it's meant to incite riot.
No.
And my favorite one of them all, that it's a movie that sets out to portray all white people as these evil bad guys.
No.
What I find most interesting about the movie is that it's obviously meant to be a social commentary about what's going on in the world, but it's not a slave movie or one of those films about apartheid. It's a movie that's a horror film, and just like Zootopia that was an animation film, when you take these serious topics and you put it into a horror or an animation, it makes it easier to dissect. On top of that, I love how Peele came out at Sundance and said that it wasn't based on the KKK-loving racist conservative stereotype that we all think of when we think of racists, but instead the liberal elite.
In that time, when Obama was president, this feeling of like, oh, don't talk about race. That's just if you talk about it, it will come. Like Field of Dreams or some shit.
Like, we're done. We have a black president. We're good.
Yeah, we're good.
We're done
past
now.
race.
We're past it.
So this film was like about pointing out why we're not past race and starting with these little subtler interactions that people will recognize.
The people in the movie don't hate black people necessarily. They're not really disgusted by them. At a certain point, they actually want to become black people. But to backtrack a bit, it's showing you a scenario in where, yeah, it's done from a black perspective, but literally you can be any person who's ever been in an awkward scenario, in a place, in a family reunion that you didn't want to be to, and be able to relate with the character of Chris.
It's meant to bring us together. I know the movie seems like it's a divisive premise. It's not, as an experience, I don't think it is. I think everybody takes what they bring into it and views it through that prism or that lens. But at the end of the day, we're all Chris while we're watching this movie.
He's pointing out that everyone has these inclinations. For example, I can recall back when I worked at a mall and I was working at a food court that every time a Mexican came up to the counter, they would come to my register. Whenever it was a black person, they would go to the girl who was right next to me. And whenever it was a white person, they would go to Sbarro's. He's pointing out that racism isn't always expressed in the typical white hoods, but in the little things where you're choosing your race over another or saying things with these preconceived notions.
Is it true? Is it better?
Wow.
So let's get into this crazy story, which again, spoilers if you haven't seen the movie. So we go all the way back to the grandpa, who is actually this Olympic track star at the Berlin Games, but lost to Jesse Owens, who, if you don't know your history, he's black. And no, that doesn't make this movie a sequel to last year's Race. The grandpa never gets over the loss and becomes obsessed with this idea that black people are genetically superior and that's why he was never able to run as fast as Jesse Owens. So he becomes obsessed with this idea to create a process of immortality. He begins by having his son become a neurosurgeon who would perfect the process of putting one's mind into another body. His wife would learn hypnosis to prep the victim's body and sink their mind into their subconscious, known as the sunken place. The daughter would be the literal race bait, and she would lure the people back to their house, and then the son would be the muscle who would keep them down. Eventually, the whole town gets involved, and they pretty much see this process as an upgrade. If they're old, they want a younger, more modern body, and really not saying that they're only focusing on black people, There's just a guy who literally says, yo, black people are in, they're in style. In my opinion, I believe they are kidnapping people from different races, because there's a point where there's this rich Asian dude who asks him about the African experience. And in my theory, that guy is a white dude who got an Asian guy's body and now is curious to try a different race. But that's just my opinion on it. Either way, Georgina and Walter, who were both seduced by Rose, end up becoming the bodies in which the grandma and grandpa go into so they can keep on living. That's why they act so cringily white, because they are white. It's why Georgina is always cleaning, because it's literally her house, and it's why Missy always gives her mean looks, because technically that would still be her mother-in-law, who she probably never got along with. It's also why the grandpa is still obsessed with running now that he's in that better, genetically superior body. That brings us to Chris, who is just the latest victim. He's been dating Rose for 5 months, conveniently, and gets brought back so they can start the process on him and have the suburbanites bid on him. The blind art collector, who never really had the talent to take pictures, bids highest, and now he gets to be in the body of a photographer who actually has talent and can see. Of course, Chris escapes, flips the horror trope on its head by having the black man actually survive, killing off all of the crazy people, and of course, his cousin who steals the show rescues him because he works for the TSA. Getting into little nuances of the film, you see how much work Jordan Peele put into the script to make it a movie that's definitely rewatchable.
It's got some layers. I've put some little Easter eggs in there, and I'll probably continue to weave in the universe in my next movie.
He mentions a lot of film homages to Stepford Wives, to Rosemary's Baby, and especially Night of the Living Dead, with that ending and how he flips it on its head. On the filmmaking side of things, he adds a bunch of black and white symbolism. Chris is a photographer who only takes black and white photos. The get-together revolves around black on white attire. There is literally a scene towards the end of the movie where Rose is sitting there in a white shirt, eating Fruit Loops and going all Clockwork Orange, drinking milk out of a black straw, and you're like, this is on the nose. The foreshadowing is also fantastic when you remember the black mold in the basement is really where the surgeries are taking place. The true meaning to the dad's dear quote and how he really just wants to get rid of a certain race, and Chris's memory of his mom and her accident, and why he feels guilty later on when he hits Georgina, but even more so, why he feels guilty when he hits the deer at the beginning of the movie. Interestingly enough, that shot that we see of the puppeteer deer ghost skeleton thing isn't in the movie, but it's obvious that that happens in the sunken place, probably when he's feeling guilty, and will probably appear in the deleted scenes. There's also the use of Childish Gambino, which was perfect.
Well, first of all, I love, stay woke. That's what this movie's about. I wanted to make sure that this movie satisfied the black horror movie audience need for characters to be smart and do things that intelligent, observant people would do.
The last thing that I think was pretty big, and I know a lot of people were questioning, and that was how exactly the hypnosis works. And while there are obviously other layers to it, they do kind of show you the first stage of hypnosis, which is hypnotic induction, which is meant to kind of fixate your eye on something, usually spinning objects, so your mind relaxes and becomes vulnerable. So the footage of the passing trees over and over and over again at the beginning of the movie is kind of starting up that hypnotic imagery right from the start. Overall, I think it's a fantastic horror film that does a great job of bringing up social commentary in a satirical fashion, and I think everybody's going to have their own perspective on it. Hopefully not everyone's blind and going, I'm not black, I can't relate to it. You can go into the movie, enjoy it as a horror, and put yourself in Chris's shoes. But I will say that if there's one thing that the movie really just bugged me, that I think it completely, utterly failed on, and I don't want to be too divisive here, but the thing is that there's a lot of things such as the hypnosis, there's a lot of things like the brain surgery that you may not understand. There's the idea that these people get kidnapped, yet they never have a loved one who came after them. All of that I was okay with, but the one thing I couldn't stand was that they made you want to believe that people would use Bing over Google.
No.
A mind is a terrible thing to waste.
Thank you guys for watching this video. Let me know down below what you thought about the movie, your perspective on it, anything that you think I missed. There was actually one more thing that I thought was fantastic, and that's when Chris finally escapes. It's because he was covering his ears, but it's interesting to note that he literally picked cotton so he can be free. It just shows you how much detail Jordan Peele put into this movie and what makes it so fantastic. But definitely let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section, whether you liked the movie, whether you didn't. And remember, if you subscribe and follow me on Twitter, you will get your own tea set so you can hypnotize whoever you want the moment you subscribe and follow me on Twitter. Keep on watching movies, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.